Have you ever stood before the Great Pyramid of Giza and wondered how ancient people could have possibly moved 2 million stone blocks, each weighing between 2 and 15 tons, with nothing but primitive tools? Or gazed up at the towering megaliths of Stonehenge and asked yourself how our ancestors managed to transport massive sarsen stones across hundreds of miles without modern machinery? What if I told you that the answer to these mysteries might be far more shocking than you ever imagined? Today, we're diving deep into one of history's most controversial questions. Were the ancient builders of these magnificent structures actually giants? Not metaphorically, but literally. Giants who possessed the strength and knowledge to construct cities and monuments that still baffle our greatest engineers today. The evidence we're about to explore will challenge everything you thought you knew about human history. From the colossal stone blocks of Baalbek in Lebanon to the impossibly precise cuts at Pumapunku in Bolivia, ancient sites around the world share one common thread. They all appear to have been built by beings with capabilities far beyond what we consider normal human strength. But here's where it gets really interesting. Hidden in plain sight, scattered across museums, archaeological sites, and ancient texts, lies evidence that suggests these builders weren't just skilled craftsmen, they were giants. Now, before you dismiss this as fantasy or folklore, let me tell you why this matters. We're not talking about fairy tales or Hollywood movies. We're talking about physical evidence, documented discoveries, and archaeological anomalies that mainstream science has struggled to explain for decades. Evidence that's been quietly tucked away, overlooked, or simply ignored because it doesn't fit the established narrative of human evolution. In this video, we're going to examine the shocking proof that ancient giants not only existed, but were responsible for some of humanity's most impressive architectural achievements. We'll explore the massive skeletal remains that have been discovered and then mysteriously disappeared. We'll investigate the impossible engineering feats that seem to require superhuman strength, and we'll uncover the ancient texts from cultures around the world that all tell the same story about a race of giants who once walked the earth. But here's what makes this investigation even more compelling. The evidence isn't just scattered randomly across time and geography. It follows a pattern that suggests these giants weren't just random individuals, but an organized civilization with advanced knowledge of construction, astronomy, and engineering. They built cities designed to last millennia, and many of their structures are still standing today, serving as silent witnesses to their incredible abilities. What you're about to discover might shake your understanding of ancient history to its core, because if giants really did build these cities, then everything we've been taught about our past needs to be rewritten. The timeline of human civilization, the capabilities of ancient peoples, and even the origins of our most sacred monuments all come into question. Are you ready to explore evidence that has been hidden from the public for generations? Evidence that could rewrite history books and challenge the very foundations of archaeology. If so, you're in for a journey that will take you from the dusty archives of forgotten museums to the towering ruins of ancient civilizations. A journey that reveals how giants didn't just exist in mythology, but left behind concrete proof of their existence in the form of massive cities and impossible monuments. Let's begin our investigation with something that will immediately grab your attention. Picture this: you're walking through the ruins of an ancient city and you come across a doorway. But this isn't just any doorway. It's 20 feet tall and 8 feet wide, built from stones that weigh several tons each. The doorway is perfectly preserved with intricate carvings that reach heights no normal human could have created without modern scaffolding. Yet there's no evidence of scaffolding being used. This isn't a hypothetical scenario. These oversized doorways exist in locations around the world, from the ancient ruins of Tiwanaku in Bolivia to the mysterious structures in Turkey. They're not anomalies or mistakes in construction. They're deliberately designed entrances that seem to have been built for beings much larger than the average human. But doorways are just the beginning. Throughout history, archaeologists have uncovered tools, weapons, and everyday objects that are far too large for normal human use. Axes with handles that would require hands twice the size of ours to wield effectively. Swords that would be impossible for a regular person to lift, let alone swing in battle. Stone hammers that weigh hundreds of pounds, yet show clear signs of being used as tools rather than ceremonial objects. The implications are staggering. If these were ceremonial objects, why would ancient peoples waste precious resources creating oversized tools that serve no practical purpose? The logical conclusion is that these tools were made for beings who could actually use them, giants who possessed the strength and stature to wield these massive implements in their daily lives. And then there are the bones. Oh, the bones. For over a century, reports have surfaced of giant skeletal remains being discovered at archaeological sites around the world. Not just tall humans, but beings that stood 8, 10, even 12 feet in height. Skeletons with elongated skulls, massive rib cages, and bone density that suggests incredible physical strength. The most tantalizing part? Many of these discoveries were made by reputable archaeologists and reported in legitimate newspapers of their time. The New York Times, the Chicago Tribune, and countless local papers documented these finds with detailed descriptions and measurements. Yet somehow, these skeletons have a disturbing tendency to disappear from public view shortly after their discovery. What happened to these remains? Why do they vanish from museum collections? And why does mainstream archaeology seem reluctant to discuss these findings? The answers to these questions might be more unsettling than you think, because if giants really did exist, and if evidence of their existence is being suppressed, then someone doesn't want us to know the truth about our past. But let's move beyond the bones and tools for a moment. Let's talk about the cities themselves, the massive stone structures that dot our planet like monuments to a forgotten age. These aren't just impressive buildings, they're engineering marvels that would challenge our modern construction capabilities even today. Take the ancient city of Baalbek in Lebanon, for example. The foundation of this site contains some of the largest worked stones in human history. The trilithon, 3 massive limestone blocks that form part of the foundation, weighs approximately 800 tons each. That's 1.6 million pounds per block. To put that in perspective, the largest stones used in the Great Pyramid of Giza weigh about 15 tons. These blocks at Baalbek are more than 50 times heavier. How did ancient builders move these massive stones? How did they lift them into place with precision that would make modern engineers weep with envy? The official explanation involves thousands of workers, elaborate ramp systems, and decades of construction time. But here's the problem with that explanation: the logistics alone would be nearly impossible to coordinate, even with modern project management techniques. Now imagine if the builders weren't normal sized humans struggling with massive stones. Imagine if they were giants for whom these blocks, while still heavy, were manageable. Suddenly, the construction process becomes far more feasible. A team of giants with the strength to move these stones, the height to position them accurately, and the engineering knowledge to create lasting structures. This isn't just speculation, it's a logical conclusion based on the evidence before us. Evidence that suggests our ancestors weren't just skilled craftsmen working with primitive tools, they were beings with capabilities that allowed them to reshape the landscape itself, creating cities that would stand as monuments to their incredible abilities for thousands of years. But who were these giants? Where did they come from? And perhaps most importantly, what happened to them? The answers to these questions lie hidden in ancient texts, archaeological discoveries, and evidence that has been systematically overlooked by mainstream academia, evidence that we're about to explore in shocking detail. The first clue comes from ancient texts that span continents and cultures, all telling remarkably similar stories about a race of giants who once dominated the earth. These aren't obscure manuscripts hidden in dusty libraries. These are foundational texts from civilizations that had no contact with each other, yet somehow all preserve the same basic narrative about giant beings who possessed incredible knowledge and power. The Book of Enoch, one of the oldest texts known to humanity, describes the Nephilim as giants who taught humans the secrets of metallurgy, astronomy, and construction. But here's what's fascinating about this account: it doesn't present these giants as mythical creatures or gods. It describes them as physical beings who lived among humans, intermarried with them, and passed down their knowledge before eventually being destroyed in a great flood. The Sumerian tablets tell a strikingly similar story. The Anunnaki, described as beings of great stature, are credited with teaching humans how to build cities, work with metals, and understand the movement of celestial bodies. Again, these aren't presented as mythological figures, but as actual historical entities who walked the earth and left behind tangible evidence of their existence. Hindu texts speak of the Daityas and Danavas, giant beings who possessed incredible strength and built magnificent cities. Greek mythology tells of the Titans, giants who shaped the landscape and created monuments that defied human understanding. Norse legends describe the Jotuns, massive beings who possessed knowledge of construction and engineering that surpassed mortal capabilities. What makes these accounts truly remarkable is their consistency across cultures that had no means of communication with each other. How do you explain the fact that civilizations separated by thousands of miles and hundreds of years all preserve the same basic story about giants who built cities and taught humans advanced skills? The most logical explanation is that these accounts are based on actual historical events, not fantasy or folklore, but the textual evidence is just the beginning. Archaeological discoveries have uncovered physical proof that these giants left behind more than just stories. They left behind tools, structures, and most importantly, skeletal remains that prove their existence was very real indeed. In 1950, during excavations in the Euphrates Valley, archaeologists discovered what appeared to be a giant's graveyard. The skeletons measured between 8 and 12 feet in height, with bone structure that suggested incredible physical strength. The discovery was documented, photographed, and reported in several newspapers. Then, mysteriously, the remains were confiscated by government authorities and never seen again. This pattern repeats itself throughout archaeological history. Giant skeletons are discovered, documented, and then they vanish. The Smithsonian Institution alone has been accused of collecting and then disposing of dozens of giant skeletal remains over the past century. When pressed for explanations, officials claim the bones were lost, destroyed, or simply never existed in the first place. Why would respected institutions go to such lengths to hide evidence of giants? The answer might lie in the implications of their existence. If giants really did build the ancient cities we marvel at today, then everything we've been taught about human history needs to be reconsidered. The timeline of civilization, the capabilities of ancient peoples, and even the origins of our most advanced technologies all come into question. Consider the precision cutting techniques found at sites like Pumapunku in Bolivia. The stones at this ancient site are cut with such accuracy that they fit together like puzzle pieces, with tolerances that would challenge modern machinery. The surfaces are polished to a mirror finish, and the angles are so precise that you can't fit a piece of paper between the joints. How did ancient builders achieve this level of precision? The official explanation involves copper tools, sand as an abrasive, and incredible patience. But here's the problem with that theory. Experiments using these supposed ancient techniques have failed to reproduce even a fraction of the precision found at Pumapunku. Modern attempts to recreate these cuts using copper tools result in rough, uneven surfaces that bear no resemblance to the mirror-smooth finishes found at the site. Now imagine if the builders weren't struggling with primitive tools. Imagine if they possessed advanced knowledge of metallurgy, engineering, and precision cutting techniques. Suddenly, the quality of work at Pumapunku becomes far more understandable. Giants with superior knowledge and strength could have created these precise cuts using methods that have been lost to time. The evidence extends beyond just cutting techniques. The transportation of massive stones across impossible terrain suggests capabilities that go far beyond what we consider normal human strength. The builders of Stonehenge somehow moved massive sarsen stones across hundreds of miles of rough terrain. The constructors of Easter Island carved and transported nearly 900 massive statues across the island's challenging landscape. These aren't isolated incidents. They're part of a global pattern of megalithic construction that seems to require superhuman strength and knowledge, a pattern that becomes much more understandable when you consider that the builders might have been giants with capabilities far beyond those of ordinary humans. But perhaps the most compelling evidence comes from the structures themselves. The scale of these ancient cities isn't just impressive, it's designed for beings much larger than normal humans. Doorways that tower 20 feet high, staircases with steps that would require giant strides to climb comfortably, ceilings that soar to heights that would be unnecessary for normal sized inhabitants. These aren't ceremonial structures or temples designed to inspire awe. These are practical spaces designed for daily use by beings who required much larger living spaces than ordinary humans. The proportions are consistent across cultures and continents, suggesting that giants weren't just occasional anomalies, but an entire civilization with specific physical requirements. The implications are staggering. If giants really did build these cities, then we need to completely reconsider our understanding of ancient history. These weren't primitive peoples struggling with basic survival. They were an advanced civilization with knowledge and capabilities that we're only beginning to understand. But here's where the mystery deepens even further. If giants possessed such advanced knowledge and incredible physical capabilities, what happened to them? Why did they disappear from the historical record? And why does evidence of their existence seem to be systematically suppressed? The answers to these questions might be more disturbing than you think, because the evidence suggests that the disappearance of giants wasn't a natural evolutionary process. It was something far more deliberate and catastrophic, something that not only erased their physical presence, but also attempted to erase their memory from human history. The truth about what happened to the giants lies hidden in the geological record, and what we find there is nothing short of terrifying. Evidence suggests that approximately 12,000 years ago, the Earth experienced a catastrophic event so devastating that it wiped out entire civilizations and reshaped the planet's surface. This wasn't just climate change or natural disaster. This was a complete reset of human civilization. Ancient flood myths from around the world all describe the same basic scenario: a great deluge that destroyed the Earth's inhabitants, sparing only a chosen few who preserved knowledge for future generations. But here's what's fascinating about these accounts: they don't just describe the flood as a natural disaster, they describe it as divine judgment, specifically targeting the giants who had grown too powerful and corrupt. The Book of Enoch explicitly states that the flood was sent to destroy the Nephilim and their offspring. The Sumerian tablets describe how the gods decided to wipe out the Anunnaki, along with most of humanity. Hindu texts speak of cycles of destruction where the giants are eliminated to make way for a new age of human civilization. What if these aren't just mythological stories? What if they're historical accounts of an actual event that eliminated the giants from the earth? The geological evidence certainly supports the possibility of a massive catastrophe around this time period. Core samples from ice sheets show evidence of dramatic climate shifts. Sediment layers reveal sudden changes in sea levels and widespread destruction of ecosystems. But the most compelling evidence comes from the sudden appearance of megalithic construction techniques, followed by their equally sudden disappearance. The precision cutting methods found at sites like Pumapunku appear nowhere in the archaeological record before or after the flood period. It's as if this advanced knowledge simply vanished from human memory, along with the beings who possessed it. This explains why modern attempts to recreate these ancient techniques have failed so spectacularly. We're not just missing the tools or methods, we're missing the physical capabilities of the builders themselves. The giants who created these monuments possessed strength, stature, and knowledge that died with them in the great catastrophe. Yet traces of their existence persist in the massive structures they left behind. These monuments serve as silent witnesses to a forgotten chapter of human history, a chapter that someone clearly doesn't want us to remember. The systematic suppression of giant skeletal remains, the dismissal of oversized artifacts, and the reluctance of mainstream archaeology to seriously investigate these anomalies all point to a deliberate effort to hide the truth. Why would anyone want to suppress evidence of giants? The answer might lie in the implications of their existence. If giants really did possess advanced knowledge and capabilities, then our understanding of human potential needs to be completely reconsidered. If they built these incredible cities using methods we can't even comprehend, then perhaps we're not as advanced as we think we are. More disturbing still is the possibility that the knowledge possessed by giants hasn't been completely lost. What if fragments of their advanced understanding have been preserved by secret societies and hidden organizations? What if the same forces that once suppressed evidence of giant skeletons are now using giant knowledge for their own purposes? The evidence we've explored today paints a picture of human history that's far more complex and mysterious than we've been led to believe. Giants didn't just exist in mythology and folklore. They were real beings who walked the earth, built incredible cities, and possessed knowledge that we're only beginning to understand. Their massive doorways still stand as monuments to their incredible stature. Their oversized tools remain as evidence of their superhuman strength. Their precisely cut stones continue to baffle our greatest engineers, and their skeletal remains, though systematically hidden, continue to surface in archaeological discoveries around the world. The shocking truth is that our ancestors weren't primitive peoples struggling with basic survival. They were giants with capabilities that allowed them to reshape the landscape itself, creating monuments that would stand as testaments to their incredible abilities for thousands of years. But perhaps the most shocking truth of all is that this knowledge has been deliberately hidden from us. The evidence of giants has been suppressed, dismissed, and destroyed not because it's false, but because it's true. Because if we truly understood what our ancestors were capable of, we might start asking uncomfortable questions about what we're capable of ourselves. The giants may be gone, but their legacy lives on in the massive structures they left behind. Structures that continue to challenge our understanding of what's possible and remind us that there's far more to human history than we've been told. The question isn't whether giants existed. The evidence makes that clear. The question is, what else don't we know about our past? And who's working so hard to make sure we never find out? If this evidence has opened your eyes to the hidden truths of ancient history, drop a comment below with your thoughts. What other mysteries from our past do you think have been deliberately concealed? And make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell, because we're just getting started on uncovering the secrets that have been hidden from humanity for far too long. The truth about our past is far more incredible than we ever imagined, and it's time we started asking the right questions about who we really are and where we really came from.